My most recent trip there, I spent the most I have ever spent there. Hey guys, welcome back. If we haven't met yet, my name is Tiffany. I'm a Washington realtor who has a love for creating beautiful spaces on a budget. And one of my favorite ways to help do just that is by shopping for home decor at the Goodwill Outlet or the Goodwill bins, where you pay for items by the pound. Now, I've been shopping there for approximately 9 years, and my most recent trip there, I spent the most I have ever spent there. So I came away with a lot of fun stuff. I also came away with a lot of projects, so I'll be sharing those with you. I'll show you how I might style some of the items, and as always, in the end, I'll share exactly how much I spent. Thanks so much for joining me here. Hope you enjoy. My first stop this day was the furniture section. The way our store is set up is one side is furniture and those items are marked individually. It's often not open, so I was excited to see those doors open this day. And now I'm over in the bins where you pay for items by the pound. I thought this was a really cute bowl, but be sure to check items like that for damage. Oftentimes items are tangled up with other items and you have to decide if it's worth it to you to put in the effort to free it. Large baskets seem to be in abundance at the Goodwill Outlet, so if you're in the market for one of those, this is a great place to pick those up. And be sure to really look items over and make sure they are not damaged. It is also very common to find damaged items. And here's my first grouping of items that I came home with. That rug and this blanket here, I just tossed them straight into the washing machine and they washed up great. And this ladder, I loved the chippy paint on it, and I actually just washed this and left it as is. This cow picture here, it did have a scuff on it. I'm not quite sure how to remove it without damaging it. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. When I picked this up out of the bins, those trays were very bent up and it was really loose. So I just twisted it and tightened it up, and I was able to work with those trays and straighten them out. Next, I picked this up, and what caught my eye were these beads here. I also found these lids for containers, but I didn't see the containers, so I am going to be repurposing these. Here I'm removing the seals from those lids. And here I'm taking some wire and wrapping it around the lid to see approximately how much I'm going to need for this project. Next, I cut off and removed those tassels. Here, I'm taking that wire and feeding it through the center of those beads. Once that wire was through, I bent the ends of it over so that when I cut that string, the beads would not fall off. I then repeated the process with the remaining beads to fit around the other lid. Then I cut off any excess wire. And here I'm running a bead of hot glue around it to help secure those beads in place. I love how these turned out. I think these are great for putting under a candle or plant or soap dispenser. Here I picked up these 2 cutting boards. Now these were both a pretty lightweight wood, so I knew they wouldn't cost too much. And I am attempting to make these look like vintage or antique cutting boards. I went online, and on Pinterest you can find some great inspiration. And here I am just freehanding and sketching approximately what shape I would like them to be and where I would like to make my cuts. Once I had a rough idea of what shape I was going for, here I am taking a drill bit and I'm just drilling into the handle there so I can get my jigsaw in there. I did end up with a good amount of tear out in this wood here, but I'm not going for perfection with this project. We're looking for that rustic antique look, so any imperfections I am just embracing. For the second cutting board, I decided to use the chop saw for the majority of my cuts here. I then used my jigsaw to finish off those cuts. For the initial sanding on these cutting boards, I went pretty aggressive. I believe I used a 40 grit, and then once I had the desired shape, I swapped out for a higher grit. Working with what I had on hand, the best tool that I found for sanding the inside of this handle here was a sanding sponge. Use food safe or food grade waxes or oils that are intended for cutting boards. I decided to use a stain. Later, I applied a second coat. Here's a look back at the before, and here's the after. I am very happy with how these turned out. The cost of vintage or antique cutting boards can be pretty hefty, so using what I had on hand and picking these up at the Goodwill Outlet, I was very happy with the outcome. And this day I also picked up this rope planter basket and this spoon. I also picked this up. Apparently it is an olive oil dispenser. It was a little tricky to clean, so I won't be using it for food purposes, but I thought my daughter would have fun using it as a watering can. This metal tray was very nice. When I flipped it over, I noticed it was from Restoration Hardware. I believe this to be stainless steel. It was not magnetic, and I wanted to give it a good cleaning. So here I'm removing those wooden handles, and I'm using Barkeeper's Friend. If you have a stainless piece that you need to clean, I recommend this product. Just be sure to go along with the grain of the stainless. Baskets like this I like to use for putting soap dispensers or lotion bottles in, but I did want to give this a fresh coat of paint. This is a super simple way to help make your bathroom look a little more put together. Next, I picked up this basket, throw blanket, and down throw pillow. Like I said, I tend to throw everything into my washing machine and hope for the best, and I was happy with how everything turned out. I thought it all washed up very well. And this throw blanket, when I picked this up, it's not my usual style, but I could tell that it was very high quality. And sure enough, when I looked at the tag, I recognized that name there. If you're not familiar, they do come with a pretty hefty price tag. This blanket is currently selling on Amazon for $95.45. This wood round, I didn't see anything that went with it. I'm assuming it is intended to have a cloche or a dome lid that goes on top, but I didn't see it in there. So we're gonna go ahead and see what we can do with this. Here I'm using this press and seal. I like this product for projects where I want to wrap it up and keep it from drying. I am saturating it with this oven cleaner to help remove that finish off of the wood. I'm then putting that press and seal over it to keep it from drying too quickly. I let it sit for about 30 minutes. I came back to check on it and it wasn't quite ready, so I decided to saturate it once again and let it sit for another 30 minutes. At that point, I could see that that finish was coming off, so I wiped it off. I then took it inside and washed it off with soap and water. Once dry, I brought it out to give it a light sanding. Now, when I started sanding, I noticed that there was a much lighter color coming through in some spots, so I decided to fully sand it and bring out that light wood. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Here I'm taking a wooden shim and I am drilling a hole toward the end here. What I'm doing is creating a wooden washer. And here I want to make sure that my fingers are not anywhere near that blade. So what I like to do is take another longer, larger piece of wood, put it on there, and then clamp it in place. And then as I make my cut, I'm holding on to that larger piece and pushing it down into the other one and up against the fence. What this wooden washer is going to allow me to do is attach this cute little planter to that base to create a stand. I could try to attach this without that wooden washer there, but this will help to ensure that I don't crack it. And here I'm using a white wax to help protect this, but also I love how it goes into that grain. I feel like it adds a little visual interest and it also protects. Once applied, I am wiping off any excess. Next, I picked up this folding, I'm not sure if it's a plant stand or if it's actually intended to be a little stool, but I thought it was cute nonetheless. And my intention is to use this as a plant stand. For this project, I'm using a flat white spray paint. If you have a project that has little imperfections, I highly suggest going with a low sheen paint. So a flat or a matte is going to be your best bet for hiding little imperfections. And sometimes my wrist really gets tired from using spray cans. So this little handle here is so wonderful for larger projects. I'll have this linked down in the description below if you want to go check it out. And I'll show you that finished product in a moment. Next, I picked up this large sign. It is so cute as it is. I just don't have a use for it, so I wanted to make it more usable for me. So I decided to give it a little makeover. Here I'm using some paint that I had on hand. My original plan here was to paint this on as a base, then use my Cricut cutter to cut out some letters, apply those on, and then paint over it and remove the letters. But as DIY projects often go, things didn't quite go as planned, so my plans did change throughout the process. Once those letters were applied, here I am applying a polyacrylic. The purpose of this is to help get those lines nice and crisp and keep that paint from bleeding through. Now, as I had said, my plans changed with this project. Once this polyacrylic had dried, I took it out to spray it white, and I realized that I did not have another can of white spray paint. So I had to go on to plan B. So here I just decided to continue that paint that I had originally put on there around the edges. I then removed that tape. I then took it out to put a top coat on it, and here I'm using Behr Chalk Matte Clear Top Coat. This is new to me. I've never used this before, and I have to say I love this product. Also, after I got this sealed, my daughter pointed out to me that that M looked an awful lot like an upside down W, and she was absolutely right. So I went back and swapped that out and resealed it. Here's a look back at the before. And here's the after. It was so cute before, but this is something that is going to be more usable for me. This tray was originally from Hobby Lobby. It had a price tag of $29.99 on it. Although that pattern was very cute, it was bold and was going to really limit the spaces I could use it in. So I decided to neutralize it. I had these paints here and I was trying to figure out which one would best match the tray. So I painted samples onto some paper, and that was really helpful in helping me to figure out which was going to match best. And now I am styling this tray with items that I picked up at the Goodwill Outlet this day. When I found these wooden houses, I thought these looked like a Joanna Gaines thing, and after Googling, sure enough, these were from the Hearth and Hand line. Once again, these trees were perfectly fine as they were. I actually wasn't even intending to do anything with these, but once I got them in my home, it was bothering me that they were a very unnatural green. So I decided to see if I could make them look a little more natural. Here I'm using this Hunt Club green from Rustoleum and this grass and Shrub Renew. Now this is a spray that is actually intended to try to conceal brown spots on your grass or your shrubs. So it is intended to mimic natural greenery. This may seem like an odd thing to spray paint, but I've found that you can paint most things, but when you're painting something like this, you want to be sure to hit it from a lot of different angles to make sure that you get full coverage. While spraying, I noticed the original prices on the bottoms of these. I'm not sure if you can see this, but that one was $7.99 and this one was marked at $9.99. Here I'm using chalk paint to give it a flocked look. Here's a look back at the before. And here's the after. I'm really happy with the color on these trees. I feel like these are a much more natural looking green. This deer wall hanging was kind of unique. That deer was raised up and it was a velvety material. It was originally from Fred Meyer and it had a price tag of $39.99 on it. When I spotted this wreath here, I was sure I could do something with it. I wasn't quite sure what that would be, so I just started by first removing those shells and that coral off of there. I'm not sure what glue they used. I would love to know because it was very strong. Once all of that was removed, I then put a fresh coat of paint on it, and then I remembered that I had this burlap ribbon that I had picked up at the Goodwill Outlet. You may recall that a few weeks back, I picked up a lot of greenery out of the bins, and I decided to grab a little bit of that and try putting that in there. I then finished it off with, again, some ribbon that I had picked up at the Goodwill bins. The nice thing about that wreath is you can completely redo it for each season if you wanted to. Next, I picked up these bells. These were off of a wind chime, and bells are very in style right now. Maybe not quite this rustic, but we're just gonna go with it and see what we end up with. So here I'm just attaching some of them to this twine. And these could be hung on a wreath or maybe even on a doorknob. Next, I picked up this candle and I thought that glitter on it was very pretty, but unfortunately it was flaking off. So I just decided to go ahead and remove it, and I wanted to show you how easy it was to remove this. And here's that candle with some other items that I also picked up from the bins this day. These were originally from Linens and Things, and they were marked $19.99 each. They were very nice, but they felt pretty style specific, and also they felt visually kind of heavy to me. So I wanted to lighten them up and make them more versatile. So you guessed it, I'm going to paint them white. Once dry, I decided to distress them. My favorite tool for distressing things like this is my sanding block. What I like about it is it doesn't curve with the piece, so it is really good at hitting those high spots, those natural points where a piece would become distressed. Here's a look back at the before, and here's the after. These now feel a lot less style specific, and I feel like these are something I could use for staging homes. I also picked up this galvanized planter. When you find things like this, remember that it doesn't just have to be used as a planter. This could also be great for holding craft supplies, putting your kids' markers or colored pencils in. Think outside of the box. It's always a bit of a gamble picking up anything that takes batteries, but this clock did in fact work. And here I just had a few quick painting projects. One thing that I love about interior decorating and design, we all have our own preferences. So when you're out shopping, if you find things that you like the size and shape of, view them as a blank slate. Think if there's some way, some little tweak that you could make to make it fit your style a little bit better. And if you bought it at the Goodwill Outlet, you didn't pay too much for it. So if that project does not turn out, it's not going to break the bank. You've probably noticed that I am frequently painting in my home. And as you can imagine, sometimes that paint does get on my counter or on my floors. And I just wanted to share this with you. I use this often and it has been so helpful to me. So I will have this along with any other items or products shown in this video linked down in the description below. The quality on this blanket was so nice. It was so soft. I quickly looked it over before I bought it. I brought it home and threw it in the wash. And when I pulled it out, I realized that it is actually a poncho. Despite that, I can absolutely still use this on a blanket ladder or at the foot of a bed. It's been quite a while since our Goodwill Outlet has had any type of bedding, so I was excited when I found these. After I had washed them up, I then ordered some pillow covers for them. If you're looking for a really simple way to make your home feel more high-end, add velvet. I found these cases on Amazon very inexpensive, but they definitely have a high-end feel. Next, I picked up this hand towel ring and this crate. My thought was you could use that for hand towels or washcloths, or you could hang it on a wall and use it like a shelf. Or you could hang this vertical beside a sink and put a hand towel over one of those handles. I also picked up these cookie cutters that I know my kids will have a lot of fun with. I thought this was a really cute wooden bunny. And these dowels, I'm sure I'll find a DIY project to do with those. I also picked up this Yankee candle holder and Pier 1 candle that I may melt down. And last but not least, I picked up these bar stools. When I got home, I looked them up and this set is currently selling at Target for $200. Now let's get down to the total of how much I spent this day. Real quick before we do that, if you enjoyed this video, would you do me a big favor and hit that thumbs up button? And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. So over in the furniture section, I spent $4.99 on each of those stools. And then over in the other section where the bins are, I spent $84.89. So my total before tax this day was $94.87. Thank you so much for sticking through this long episode with me. I hope that you come away inspired. You can create beautiful spaces on a budget. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.